Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
What if your emotional life didn't have to feel like a constant reaction or a constant recovery? Welcome to the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, a global online clinic offering psychotherapy, coaching, integrative well-being services, and mind-body practices, all in one place. At International Awareness Integration Institute, we don't just talk about change, we train it. Our work is guided by awareness integration theory, an evidence-based psychological and educational model designed to reduce anxiety and depression patterns, strengthen emotional regulation, and help you build a life that feels meaningful, steady, and fulfilling. Whether you're navigating stress, relationship strain, burnout, life transitions, trauma symptoms, or simply the feeling that you've outgrown your old life, you'll find a clear path forward here, supported by licensed professionals and expert practitioners. If you're ready to feel better, think clearer, and live fully, join the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic today. Visit awarenessintegration.com and book your first session or join our membership.
But I think that a lot of that stems from us collectively being told that anger is wrong or anger is a problem. You know, the positive psychology movement of the 70s and 80s that we thought did such great work did in that it helped us appreciate that people have strengths and weaknesses and people can optimize their lives. But the other thing that came along with it was this idea of positive and negative emotions. And frankly, I think that's bullshit. It's just not true. There are certainly emotions that are more comfortable than others, but I don't believe there are any bad emotions. The question really is, how much is going to help you for the matter at hand? Anger, when harnessed correctly, I mean, it motivates people to get things done. And we are so worried that if we get angry, we're going to kill someone. And no, it doesn't have to be that.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today. If you've been doing your best, but still feel stuck in anxiety, relationship stress, or the weight of old patterns, this is where things begin to shift. At the Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic, we offer something different. We provide two pathways forward. In psychotherapy, our licensed clinicians help heal unresolved trauma, reduce anxiety and depression, and navigate life transitions. In coaching, our certified coaches help you build confidence, leadership, and relationship mastery, turning insight into decisive action. Both are guided by Dr. Foojan Zeine's evidence-based awareness integration theory, a structured roadmap from awareness to integration to action. During our summit, save 25% on all services from March 22nd through 29th. Visit awarenessintegration.com to book your first session or request to be matched with the right provider. Welcome to The Inner Voice, a Heartfelt Chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist and author and the founder of the Awareness Integration Theory, an International Awareness Integration Institute. Today, I will be talking with Dr. Mitch Abrams. He's a psychologist providing sport clinical and forensic psychology services and is also the expert in the treatment of trauma since the year 2000. He has worked inside the prison system in New Jersey and now oversees psychological services for 7 of the state's prisons as chief psychologist for Rutgers University Correctional Healthcare. He's also a clinical assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry at Rutgers Health Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. Dr. Abrams is the founder and the CEO of Learn Excellence for athletes utilizing anger management, the training to assist athletes, coaches, and professionals reach peak performance. Today, we will be talking about his latest book. Ready? I'm not fucking angry. Adjust the flames to get what you want and need. We had a great conversation. I hope that you enjoy him as much as the conversation that I had with him. And I enjoyed, two therapists talking about some of the experiences and from his view. And because he works with a lot of people who are in athletes who are using the anger in a positive way. And then he also is working in the prison system where he sees how people are using their anger to their own detriment. So bringing all of that to you. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I think the book is absolutely amazing. So definitely watch through the whole thing. You'll learn very much as I've learned from him. Now, be sure to subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel and connect with me however you like through my social media, through my website, foojanzeine.com. Be sure to go to the awarenessintegration.com or IAII.life. We have amazing therapists and coaches and mind and body providers and functional medicine. We brought everything together under the same roof, and everybody's trained under the awareness integration theory and can be at your service from anywhere from the globe, obviously for therapy in the state of California, coaching, and all of the other services anywhere from the globe that you like to join us. We'd love to support you. We have membership programs, so we're there for you in any format that you could need and we could offer. We want to be there for you. We want to create a community that is into well-being and healing and really responsible to take care of ourselves. So we're there. So I love to hear from you, and looking forward to having a dialogue with all of you. Now, without further ado, here's Dr. Mitch Abrams.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Yeah, sometimes the mind understands, but the body still holds the stress. That's why the International Awareness Integration Institute Virtual Clinic offers mind-body services that help you regulate your nervous system, restore calm, and return to yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally. Our reflective practices include guided mindfulness, breath work, yoga, and grounding exercises, and specifically curated to support emotional regulation and physiological calm. Our somatic integration practices are a refined body-led approach where healing begins with presence, working with breath, sensation, posture, and gentle movement so resilience becomes felt, not forced. And for those who want deeper whole person support, we offer functional well-being guidance, addressing the interplay between hormonal balance, digestion, sleep architecture, and lifestyle factors with a root cause holistic framework. This is not self-care as a luxury. This is self-regulation as a life skill and a pathway to fulfillment. Choose the support your body and life have been asking for. Visit awarenessintegration.com to join a weekly meditation, explore somatic healing, breathwork, yoga-inspired movement, or functional medicine services, and start feeling the difference. It is so nice to have you, Dr. Mitch Abrams, everyone. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've got a book with an amazing title. Everyone embrace. I'm not fucking angry. Adjust the flame to get what you want and need. So what got you really to want to work on anger and everybody else's anger?
Well, I was a very angry kid. I grew up probably the poorest kid in a poor neighborhood. And when I was about 12 or 13 years old, my mother told me, you better get that shit under control or you're going to ruin your life. I didn't realize that it was going to turn into my life's work. And interestingly enough, the reason why this became the title of the book was because I was getting a lot of referrals for anger management work, and everybody that came in was sent by someone else, right? Very rarely do they come in and say, "Oh, I'm the one with the anger problem." The same way as people don't usually say, "I'm a bad driver." People don't often admit that they have problems with anger. And so I would say, all right, well, why don't you tell me about it? I understand someone referred you to me. What is the issue that you have with anger? And their response would always be, I'm not fucking angry. And their eyes are bulging and veins popping out. And I'm like, yeah, clearly you're not angry at all. And so I hope that this conversation and the book will help normalize the emotion a little bit for people. I've done a fair amount of cursing over the course of my life, but especially as a professional, and you're talking about anger, I think it's really important to try to talk organically. And when people get pissed off, they tend to throw all kinds of expletives around. I'm hoping that this will be an opportunity that we could kind of standardize vocabulary a little bit and talk about anger in a meaningful way so that we can harness it and get good things done in life.
Wasn't there actually a research that says people who use profanity, especially when they're expressing, although appropriately, and where do they do it, but that it made them feel much better when they were using as an expressive concept?
Yes, well, I wrote that. No, I'm kidding. I didn't. I didn't write it. But there's also been a lot of research that shows that people that curse are also more intelligent. I'm sure that the people who wrote that article were quite fond of cursing themselves. So it might be a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
But I think we have an epidemic throughout the world, but certainly in the States, about people being able to talk about emotions. We're not very good at it. We have these phones and emoticons that are supposed to communicate emotions, and we don't do it very well. So the more we're able to get on the same page and not offend too many people in the process, the better.
I want to be very honest with you and our audience. I've had a lot of issues with anger. And I think everybody knows who's with me, that I've been a therapist for 35 years and a coach for 35 years. But I had such a prejudice against anger. And one of my biggest work was still, even my clients who came in and they were angry, I would tap into my own anger, and I didn't know. And to me, it was interesting that I thought that anger was destructive, and I would, even when I would get angry and I would just destroy myself, like I would hit myself somewhere and I didn't know, I would get bruises. And to me, I had gone to a place of anger is not good. I'm not going to allow myself to be angry, which obviously, you know better than me that doesn't work, right? So it would leak from other places. I would become passive aggressive. I would, use other ways of leaking that anger versus handling it. It took a lot of ups and downs with myself, not only to accept my anger and be able to how to, shift it and how to be able to express it appropriately, where I wasn't intimidating others, I wasn't putting myself in danger, and that I could actually tolerate and be with other people's anger. That took a lot of processing for me. Just wanted to share that with you.
Well, I think good for you that you recognize that, but I think that a lot of that stems from us collectively being told that anger is wrong or anger is a problem. The positive psychology movement of the 70s and 80s that we thought did such great work did in that it helped us appreciate that people have strengths and weaknesses and people can optimize their lives. But the other thing that came along with it was this idea of positive and negative emotions. And frankly, I think that's bullshit. It's just not true. There are certainly emotions that are more comfortable than others, but I don't believe there are any bad emotions. The question really is, how much is going to help you for the matter at hand? Anger, when harnessed correctly, I mean, it motivates people to get things done. And we are so worried that if we get angry, we're going to kill someone. And no, it doesn't have to be that way. I've done a lot of work with high performers, including athletes and attorneys and CEOs, and all of them talk about being aggressive. And that's the differentiation. There's aggressiveness that's instrumental, that's goal directed, that helps us get things done. And anger can motivate us to do that. But and in fact, even physiologically at moderate levels, anger makes us faster, stronger, decreases our perception of pain, gives us more stamina. But there's a cliff that we go off, and any emotion that gets too high interferes with cognitive processing. And so that's what I think people are really afraid of. I'm afraid that I'm going to get into a rage state, I'm going to lose my shit, and I'm going to make big mistakes and hurt either myself or people around us. And that all stems from not allowing us to be human. And once we realize that being angry is as natural as breathing, then we can learn to master it and use it as an ally rather than it being a self-destructive force.
Have you experienced anger that shows up for men and through and expresses by men has a different effect on family members and community versus women? My experience has been that the reason partially that I was working with my own anger in that way was that as I was coming across as, and expressing my anger, I wasn't showing up as powerful. I was showing up as a bitch, but nobody just wanted to deal with me.
And out of control, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. And it would, like, I had friends that would come and tell me, like, "Oh, I wouldn't want to, have anybody that would be like you as a mate because of, your way of angry." And as a CEO of different companies, I even remember as I would show up as someone who, asserted something with some sort of an anger, the people in front of me would get scared and then kind of like, versus when I saw other people, even my partners or who are men, when they asserted in that way or they were angry, other men would respect and women would respect. So it was interesting that when men asserted, and I'm not talking destructive anger, right? So destructive anger from anyone is different. But I'm just talking when you were talking a CEO or an athlete or someone who brings the power of anger and shows up with that, I saw a very different reaction from the world when it was coming from men or women. What's your experience on that?
Well, I think what you're saying is very nuanced and very complicated and confusing for most people, because I think some of it is the long-standing stereotype that women are supposed to be demure and calm and complacent. And I know a lot of very successful women, and they are not that. They are not that. They're aggressive, they get angry at times, but it really has to do with maintaining the composure. And I think that people will quickly jump to, oh, the hysterical woman or the angry bitch, instead of, wait a minute here, she's acting in a way that's different than the way she normally does. We should listen to this. So some of it, I think, has a little of the condescending patriarchy that often leads to double standards in the business world. But I think that the other thing also that goes along with it is that men are socialized to externalize their emotions. So there's a certain normalization. It's almost as if men are more skilled in using their anger than women because they're encouraged to do so. However, you have more men that are arrested for domestic violence than females. Now, it is worth noting when it comes to domestic violence, whoever raises their hand to another is the person who's transgressed. But for most people, it doesn't get to severe physical violence. It's bidirectional, and it's mostly verbal and emotional abuse. And if you think that a woman can't do damage without lifting a finger, she certainly can. And so I think that what happens is that, again, this is more the sociocultural demands are placed on people. And when it's repressed, it comes out sideways. Instead of, saying, hey, listen, something, I don't like what you just said. I have a real fucking problem with that. All right, good. Let's talk about it. We could disagree without me wanting to kill you. But when you hear that happening to a woman, it's usually just a man being dismissive and not taking what the woman's saying as serious and valuable. But, men, women, people, you're going to find assholes in every group, no matter where you go.
Totally agree. Um, in your book and in your way of working with anger, what is it that you do that has been different than, let's say, the role of psychology that we've utilized? For example, like identifying, the rage, what is underneath, and then, expressing it putting it into a form of expression that is working, for outside, and how to handle, and all, as an umbrella, let's say, what are all the underneath emotions? Could be sadness, could be any type of vulnerable emotions that we have. So there are main conversations that we have in the level of psychotherapy that we
Right.
utilize. What are the ways that you've brought into your book that are different, into your practice, that are different than that?
So I think I would divide it into attitudinal approach as well as skills approach. So most people come with anger issues and they're looking to get rid of anger because that's what someone told them they're supposed to do. And I immediately flip that on its head. No, 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 no. No one gets in trouble for being angry. You get in trouble for the stupid things you sometimes do when you're angry. I don't want you to not be angry. I want you to care about things. I don't want you to get so hot that you burn yourself up. So the first thing that we're doing is we're not saying get rid of it. We're saying invite it, master it. Because I believe anger, like social media or even firearms, all of these things can be very dangerous. But if you learn how to use them, they can be very useful tools, right? And so it starts with, we're not getting rid of anger. We're inviting it in. I want you to be like the sculptor with clay and get comfortable with this. Invite it in. It is not destructive. It does not have to be. And the more you master it, the better you're going to be able to use it. But the other thing that goes along with it is that most people don't realize they have an anger problem until they've already gone past the red line. So it's about early detection. Everything in anger management is really about early detection. And it's very hard to detect something when you're trying to pretend it doesn't exist. So first we're saying, it's good, no problem. Let's learn how to harness it, recognize it early, and then adjust the flame. Very often you'll hear people say, oh, well, I just flipped the switch. No, anger is a dial. We want to adjust the flame to the right amount that's going to help us in a given task. The sports analogy that I'll often use is that if you need something that needs raw power, you're going to want more anger. If you need fine motor coordination and surgical precision, you're going to want less anger. So the key is to have a set of skills, a toolbox that you can cool yourself down quickly, but not to zero. I'm not asking people in the middle of a boardroom to get up and start doing yoga poses. I just want you to be able to turn it down a little bit so that you have your brain fully engaged and you can be as effective as you're capable of.
I remember, I'm sure you know Albert Ellis. I remember
Sure.
yeah, we were with him. He was doing the foreword for one of my books, and then I sat down with him, and it was amazing where in 15 minutes, he had the ability to get you to the enraged and then tell you how to calm down. And one of the things that I had learned from him is, and also what you just shared. So I wanted to kind of, open that up a bit with you, which is the anger is almost like there's something shows up in us, which we could really feel it inside of your body. Like you could really experience, this emotion inside your body. And then I've noticed that with this particular thought process, you could fan it and go from, you could go from the intensity of 2 to 200 if you like to, with the way you're fanning it up, or that you could, kind of like like you said, bring the flame down with a particular way that you deal with yourself. So bringing it back to you, can you share a little bit of how we fan things up, or how we recognize it early and bring the switch down instead of fanning it up?
I mean, first off, Albert Ellis was, as far as I'm concerned, the best at making real life situations real life situations. Very often when you're in therapy, the challenge is always generalizing what they learned in session to outside of the room, right? And one of the things that he and Aaron Beck, of course, spent a lot of time paying attention to cognitive distortions, right? And what we've come to appreciate, this was the work of Kenneth Dodge back in 1980, is that there's a distorted set of cognitive distortions we see with chronically angry people. It's this hostility bias. They're more likely to see neutral stimuli as provocative. They have difficulty generating a list of possible explanations for what happened besides they have it out for me. And they have a lot of difficulty coming up with other ways of handling things besides using violence. There's a legitimization of it. So if you believe that everybody's got a problem with you, then you just completely, here goes another motherfucker giving me a hard time. And if I don't do something that everyone else thinks they're gonna punk me, and next thing you know, now I have to make this statement that everybody in the world knows, don't fuck with me when I get angry. And you're like, the guy bumped into you by accident. He didn't even know you were there. And so I do think there's a lot of that with what we feel we must do because everybody's watching. Not to mention the fact that there's a lot of triggers that we have. There's the direct triggers everybody can relate to. Someone punches you in the nose or invades your space or calls you an expletive. But the thing that's more interesting, and it gets to either cognitive schema or psychodynamic exploration, is the examination of the unconscious processes that are just, almost pre-conscious, that every time someone pushes that button, you're like, bam, off you go, right? It's like, oh, here we go. I have to have another conversation about this. Didn't I just talk to you, my 18-year-old daughter? Didn't I just have this conversation with you yesterday? Why do I have to do it again? Now, my thought process is I'm not important. That's why I'm angry. I'm not important. I have to say this again because I wasn't important enough for her to listen the first time, even if that is nowhere in her calculus. But my insecurity about needing to be important says, oh, you better make sure she gets it this time, right? And then you start escalating up. And so the more we can take our projections back and recognize the cognitive processes that we engage in that start that, goes from a little ember to a forest fire, it's always easier to get to it early. And I think and the other thing that I think is important is when we talk about early detection, part of it is recognizing how your body changes, because your body changes the same way with anger as it does with fear and anxiety. It's the sympathetic nervous system spike. So we could teach people to recognize those cues, but the problem is for a lot of people, those cues will not be indicative because their body is amped up as it's supposed to be. So if a lawyer is standing in front of the judge and cross-examining a witness and not getting anywhere, their heart is beating out of their chest. It could just be because they're excited. So what we also have to teach people to do is recognize when there's a shift in their cognitive set. When I'm not executing my plan, but I want to execute that asshole right there, you've shifted to the place that you're no longer being productive.
Very much. I think what I've seen in myself is even when I've done like speaking engagement and I'm doing all of these things, like you say, my body's pumping and I'm excited and doing that. And then one poor soul in the middle of the, audience decides to raise their hand. And the first question is great. The second question is great. And then the third question, they're insisting on something that is, I've already explained. And it shows up exactly the same way. Like I show up as, okay, didn't I just say that? Now it's like she's insisting. And that part of me that says, I need to hold dominance in this matter shows up. And sometimes I talk to that person, although that's not my intention, but I know that the reaction happens. And I know there's a part of me that wants to hold that dominance with that level. And usually says something that at that moment that person feels like dominated and belittled. And then I'm done. And then I feel that, right? So it's like I'm being intimidating and I set the boundary that way and I feel that. And then I'm like, you could have done your job. You just didn't have to be an asshole about it. So right. It comes up in that way. But so important to know, to have that awareness. Because we could come up with a lot of righteousness afterward, right? Like you don't feel good about it. And then you have a reaction from outside because you just created that reaction out of your own like anger and trigger. And yet, you could be righteous about it. or the awareness of what you shared of how my symptomology is, what happens, and what kind of thought process happens right at that moment that
Yes.
gets to me to that protective or dominating or all of that. So it's very important to be that aware. So and you're sharing, and you're bringing people to look at not only their body, looking at their thought process, looking at how they escalate themselves, and what is it that they can do to bring that down and adjust the flame.
Absolutely. And what's also interesting in that type of scenario, Foojan, is that you could have 9 people treat you like gold, and it doesn't matter when that one person is working your nerve. Well, and look, it makes sense from an evolutionary point of view. We selectively attend to negative things because they're potentially dangerous, right? Someone makes you look like a fool on stage, you don't know what the ripple effect might be on your platform. So there's a certain protectiveness and dominance that goes into it. But it also has to be counterbalanced with grace. And it's hard to do. People don't realize how difficult it is when you're in the public eye, that you're bound to screw it up somewhere. And the more that you're aware of your processes, the better. Another interesting thing that goes along with it as you were speaking was I was thinking about how the expectations of apologies when you transgress are, I think, misunderstood, right? So, you have people, first off, when someone apologizes and they don't change their behavior, that's a fuck you, right? That's not an apology. But the thing that's interesting is when someone apologizes, what they're actually doing is they're shifting the pressure on you to accept the apology and forgive them when you may not want to. So the analogy would be, I punch you in the nose and you're annoyed by it. And what does society expect me to do? Mitch, you were a brute. You should apologize. So I apologize. And now they're looking at you like, well, be graceful and accept his apology. And you're like, screw that. My nose still hurts. I'm still pissed. And I think that people forget that forgiveness is a gift that you don't have to give. And it's important to be kind to yourself, just as we need to be kind to ourselves when we screw up and we act in a way that we hurt others. I don't have a time machine. We can't change what we've done, but we could work better on it in the future. Similarly, when someone wrongs us, even when they're angry, it's an explanation, not an excuse. And I think that we should be mindful of not forgiving people until we're ready to.
Let's go to that. Because there's a piece in there that says you don't have to, and then you said until we're ready to. So from I don't have to, I need to honor my anger, and I don't need to forcefully assign something and then forget myself or devalue what I was going through. There's also this other piece, which if I'm not in the process of somehow letting this go and keep brewing, and if I have that idea of, see, I'm a victim, see this, see that we were sharing before, then I add these pieces to the self-fulfilling prophecy that, see, I'm not, and everybody does that, and it's somehow now it brews a different type of anger, which is going to keep being, and not only brew the anger, but I'm also assigning a meaning to myself, a belief about myself that it might not be accurate. So can you walk us through from I need to honor my anger and hurt, and just because someone apologized does not mean that I need to immediately let it go until what you shared, until I'm ready. Can you walk
I will try. I will try. First, I will summon my best Ellis and say, well, it's not going to kill you, right?
And he used to use profanity with clients like no other person I've ever seen.
Right. So first, in order to honor ourselves, I think that we have to recognize that it might be uncomfortable, but that's okay. Because it's uncomfortable does not mean we have to do something about it. And I think there's a Buddhist quote that a grudge is something that you cannot hold without hurting yourself, right? So what happens is when people, and there are some people that are just grievance collectors, they hold grudges all the time and they're pissed about things that happened 17 years ago that you can't change. And it leads them to be fairly miserable people because they have all of these unresolved issues. And the truth is, they're hurting themselves far more than they're hurting the people that they have the grudge against. So I think that what happens is that we should be mindful that as you go through this process of being uncomfortable, you don't like the way this person hurt you, there has to be an end game. And the end game is I don't want to hold on to this, and I don't want to hurt for too long, because frankly, that person is not that important. As long as you are pissed off, it means that that person is still living in your life. This is the same thing to me about trauma. PTSD symptoms are anxiety based. I will often prescribe the anger. I'll look for it. It's like, as long as you're symptomatic, that person continues to control you. Aren't you fucking tired of that? So let's lean into this hard work and use the anger to fuel you when it's hard. And so the movement to when you're ready to is when you realize that holding on to this grudge, holding on to the anger, is far surpassed by the ability to find some tranquility and move on with your life in a more productive way. But it does not mean that because you're angry at something, you have to forgive someone right away, because the other side of it is there are a lot of people out there that just offend everyone all the time and no one ever holds them accountable. So there's this balance of holding yourself accountable first so that you can hold other people accountable. And sometimes the answer is, I'm going to carve that person out of my life so I don't give them the opportunity to hurt me again.
Everyone, go get this book. I'm Not Fucking Angry. Adjust the Flame to Get What You Want and Need by Dr. Mitch Abrams. Mitch, what about the people that the only way that they know how to release their anger if someone has harmed them is to get a revenge? Apologies are not enough. Nothing is enough. I want them to feel the same pain they have created for me, and I will not live, in peace until I've done my revenge, which obviously, as you know, how much, destruction it creates, not only in their life, but almost
Right.
everybody else's life around them. Can you share your perspective on that?
Sure. Usually those people aren't satisfied with the revenge either. The revenge is not vengeful enough. And the reason is because they're trying to fill a hole inside of them with this revenge. And where does that come from? Often it comes from early trauma, right? It's this inadequacy that I'm not good enough, so I have to show the world for hurting me. It's similar to the insecure guy who was never able to date successfully, and then he changes his wardrobe and he loses weight, and now it doesn't matter how many women he's with, he's never satisfied because he's still struggling with the inadequate, insecure person. And so there are people that are never satisfied with the revenge. That's a deeper therapy issue and some of those folks are really antisocial, sometimes even psychopathic. They don't have a conscience. They believe that the world is there for them, with real malignant narcissism, that if someone has wronged me, not only do I don't have to just get revenge, I need to get revenge times 5, because I have to show the world. And the irony of it is that is not a sign of power. The toughest guy in prison doesn't fight. He doesn't have to. Real power is when people know not to mess with you. And so when people are constantly hunting for revenge, the question that I always ask is, why is this person so important? How is this schmuck over here leading you to do things that could destroy your life? Is it really worth it? And they'll usually say, yeah, all right, well, then I'll see you in prison. I don't know what to tell you. You're not, that dog won't hunt. You're not going to get satisfaction that way. And when you have that difficulty with finding satisfaction and some contentedness, that's a deep therapy issue. I would also say that, it also depends on the developmental age of the person. When we're young, or when I was young, a long time ago. I used to equate happiness with excitement. And as you get more mature, I think people start to realize that happiness is contentedness, which has a peaceful component to it. And I'm not talking about, you know, meditating all the time. I'm talking about enjoying the tranquility and the enjoyment of spending time with people that you enjoy spending time with, having a good conversation, laughing some, but it's not going to, chase danger off a cliff.
But we're looking at it also a societal concept, because so far we've been talking a little bit more about individuals and how individual relational constructs are. There's also a report that anger overall in our society has gotten higher. And there's a lot of polarization with ideologies, whether it's a political ideology, religious ideology, the things that have happened where, people hold different alliances with different ideologies or groups. And, social media has also become a part where they can freely share whatever they want and throw whatever it is. And, and I've watched, our younger generation who are being raised with this and, assume and adapt a lot of the anxiety and anger and rage because they're part of this, these types of whatever rhetoric, social movement that is, algorithmically being thrown. What are your thoughts about this? And what would you share with people who are, not necessarily having this as a personal issue, but have become part of this, like they go to any of their parties or work or whatever, and these types of conversations are upon them, or they go into social media and part of this becomes part of their life. It's like brewing constantly. What are your thoughts about the social anger?
It's difficult to discuss without considering the political landscape, right? Because that often fans the flames. And I think that there are too many people that are naive to what's going on. I mean, it's wonderfully ironic that if you look at the history in the United States, the Republicans used to be Democrats and the Democrats used to be Republicans, right? The issues flip. What's right, what's left. And so I have a little bit of healthy systemic Illuminati paranoia that there are people that are controlling things and we're just pawns. And we need to figure out how to come to our own conclusions. I mean, I think it's the same thing with religion. You have to figure out what makes sense to you. But if we have come to a place, and I caught some criticism because I was pretty vocal when Charlie Kirk was murdered. And it was not because I agree with Charlie Kirk. There were several things that he said I agree with. I appreciate people coming to the table and disagreeing. The thing that I was pointing out most powerfully is it is not healthy when we've gotten to a place that I cannot disagree with you without wanting you dead. That's what's happened. We have so desensitized our society to violence and had very little tolerance and respect for disagreement. It used to be the people you disagree with, especially when they have good points, it garnered respect. Now we have to disappear them or cancel them. It reminds me of, there was a clip that I often show to people when John McCain was running against Barack Obama. And there was a woman in the audience at one of his town halls who said, I don't trust him. He's an Arab. He's a this, he's that. And John McCain, as an elder statesman, government, he said, no. He's a good man. He's a good father. He's a good American. There's just fundamental things I disagree with him about. And that's what this campaign is about. We have so normalized character assassination that people cannot be allowed to survive if their rhetoric is too toxic. And ironically enough, the same is true in the other direction. If you're not loud enough, you just get trampled and now you're irrelevant. I think it was Denzel Washington who was talking about it. I don't even know how long ago, but I remember the clip. he was talking to reporters about nowadays, it doesn't even matter if you get it right. You just have to get it first. That people are more interested in just getting the news out there without corroborating information, not caring who you get hurt, who gets hurt in the process. Now, if you superimpose that over suppressed anger and selective approval of violence, it's a tinderbox. And people, people don't want to consider the seriousness of this until it happens in their backyard. And this is not just happening in some rural town in Wisconsin. It's all over the place. So it's hard for me to be optimistic, but I do think that those of us that are willing to step into the milieu can help people on a one-to-one level, and then by word of mouth, these things can change. I certainly try to take a place in social media that normalizes anger and talks about how we resolve things, and that it can be used, and we don't have to hate someone that we're angry with. I mean, look, romantic relations are the perfect example. There is no way that you're going to be in a romantic relationship with someone and never get angry. It's just an impossible. Well, actually, there is a possibility. If you don't listen to one another, then maybe. Otherwise, anger is going to happen. What, we have to throw out a relationship every time we get angry at someone? No. We can do better. We can learn to accept our emotions, not let them get out of control, and not be destructive. And that has to be looked at on every level, the micro level, the macro level, the societal level. Unfortunately, a lot of the people that pull the strings seem to have some investment in the chaos. And we have to decide whether or not we want to be part of that or not.
Exactly. When you shared also about the romantic relationship, I often also share and see clients where it's like, if you are an attorney, or you're a businessman or a woman, and this way of intensity and negotiation where you're aggressive in what you do gets you what you want in a one-time deal, and you never have to see those people ever again. And you get used to that way of dealing, and then you bring exactly the same methodology to your lover or your spouse or your children or your family members who, you can do all of this, but at the end of the night you want to be intimate together. That ain't going to cut it. That's just not going to cut it.
It's a great analogy, but I would deconstruct it a little bit. I have lived long enough to have learned that the world is a surprisingly small place.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm always telling people I'm not into short money, I'm into long money. You never know with this person that you're doing business with when you're going to do business with them again. And if they respect the way you did business, especially if you did well, right? A good negotiation is when both people walk away thinking that they won and they also know they left stuff on the table, right? So when you conduct yourself in a way that you are respected, but they want to come to the table with you again, it creates the opportunity for more business.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have your finger on the destruct button at times. There are times that things have to happen that way, but relationships, whether they're romantic relationships, professional relationships, business relationships, have an opportunity to be synergistic. And so, yeah, you can go scorched earth, but let me tell you, it ain't going to work for long. And the more we're aware of that, the more we could be strategic. In fact, that's really the moral of the story. When I was writing this book, I was thinking about all the men that I've worked with. And as I was coming up with examples, I was thinking about, and there's a woman that's an ascending executive dealing with sexism on the job, right? A mom dealing with terrible twos. You start to realize this is not a men's issue. This is all of our issues. And so the more we put that on the table, then we could all do a better job.
Is there anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
Yeah, I hope that people can find some sense of relief from this discussion. People are really hard on themselves. Yeah, I'm sure you act like an asshole sometimes. If you followed me around, you go, oh, Mitch, you're an expert? Does it look like it? I get it wrong too. You have to be kind to yourself. I'm certainly less volatile than I used to be, and I don't make the same mistakes that I used to. So I'm constantly getting better. And when you realize that you're struggling with this, welcome to the club. We all do. So have a little sense of relief that once we own it, we could do something about it. And another thing is that because you're not popping off every second of the day, it means you already have a lot of anger management skills. You're not taking the bait. You are exposed to provocations all the time. So you're probably doing it better than you think you are, but there's still room for improvement. And I hope that this book kind of opens the window for you to find different ways to do this.
Where could people find you?
The easiest way is at my website, www.drmitchabrams.com. I'm also at Twitter or at X at Mitch Abrams PsyD. And please, if you have any thoughts or questions about the things that we're discussing, reach out to me. I think that anger is a topic that everybody knows about that no one wants to talk about. And I'd much rather talk shop and maybe give some people some ideas before they do something that they regret. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 30 years, and I became the anger management expert in sport primarily because no one else was doing it. And so I have my ideas, and not everybody agrees with me, but I think that there's a lot of room for growth. So if you have thoughts, questions, ideas, please reach out. I'd love to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much for taking the time to being with us.
My pleasure. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Awareness, integration theory, certification programs. If you're a psychotherapist, clinician, or coach ready to elevate your impact, I invite you to become certified in the Awareness Integration Theory, AIT model. AIT is a structured, evidence-informed approach that strengthens emotional regulation, reduces anxiety and depression patterns, and helps clients create lasting change. Our training is practical, clear, and immediately usable in sessions, so you can work with more confidence and consistency. Join a global community of practitioners shaping the future of integrative mental health. Become AIT certified today. Visit awarenessintegration.com.